Hi, everyone. Welcome to the monthly mortgage update. We have the data from January of 2025. We're still waiting on February, but I know it's March right now, but now we can look back and kind of get some clarity on what's happened and kind of see what's going in. Of course, this is over Maricopa County, Greater Phoenix metro area. I'm going to hint that it says there's a shift, and we're going to look at the numbers and kind of see what potential shift could be coming. First thing I want to say is January home sales were up 5% higher this year than they were last year. And this is actually the fourth consecutive month where home sales have increased. So definitely a lot more going on in the market. The average purchase price has gone up a bit. It's actually 13% higher year over year. Now you have to take in consideration this is a whole Greater Phoenix metro area. And so there's different pockets, different neighborhoods where you might say, well, that's not necessarily true. But overall, it's up 13% year over year, which if you bought a home in the last couple of years, you always like to hear that, homes are appreciating. And I would say, I'm going to say one thing on this slide, and then we'll go to another slide, and it's almost going to sound like I'm saying the opposite. We've had a lot of home sales, and I think overall what people are realizing is these interest rates, they're just high. And so people have said, well, I'll just wait. It hasn't worked out for them. And buyer demand still remains pretty strong because there's been a lot of job growth in the population in the area as well. So we talked about buying homes. Buying homes has gone up quite a bit. On the other end, sellers are kind of in this funny spot where it's more people are buying homes than sellers. The average home has been on the market for 75 days before it's sold. And so there's more and more sellers that are starting to say, kind of with the mortgage rates, and say, a lot of people thought, well, I'll wait to sell my home. I'll wait to sell my home until rates start coming down. And more sellers are starting to put their home on the market. What they're doing, you would think that if they were struggling to sell their home, they would just lower the price. We haven't quite seen that yet because prices went up. But half of all sellers are offering a seller concession. That's a bag of money that goes to the buyer, says, please buy my home, and you can use this money to lower the closing costs, lower your monthly payments for the whole 30 years. Or what me and my dad recommend is doing a temporary rate buy down, lowering your payment for the first 2 or 3 years, because as inflation comes down and interest rates come down, you can refinance into a lower rate. Very few people keep the same mortgage for 30 years. Now, if you bought a home in 2020, you probably are going to keep that beautiful 2 or 3% interest rate for 30 years. But in general, as rates come down, people refinance into a new mortgage. And me and my dad help people spend the least amount of interest possible on that kind of debt. So yeah, I guess to go back, people still buying homes, and home prices actually gone up a little bit. But what you don't see is that gray area where seller concessions are still really high. On average, sellers are giving up to $10,000 on that. But you haven't seen, that's like the first domino. You haven't seen home prices come down quite yet. The other thing is Arizona's added nearly 57,000 jobs in the last year. And so more jobs means more people moving in, more buyers entering the market. And we haven't seen the data yet. I mean, this is January data, so potentially next month we'll see the February data. We will, but we haven't seen the data for the California wildfires, and a lot of people were speculating, tons of people will be moving in to Arizona? There's just distressed loan programs for people who have lost their homes where they can buy a home for 0% down. But in general, demand for homes in Arizona, especially in the Greater Phoenix metro area, is not going away. Even with these high interest rate, Phoenix remains, a hot spot for home ownership. And you hear about Google and Amazon and all these huge, massive companies and employers just love Arizona. The one thing I'll say, this is kind of shifting gears. I've talked about buying homes, selling homes. A lot of people have been reaching out to us because we have a record amount of equity in our homes. There's also a record amount of credit card debt, and credit card interest can be really high. Usually it's over 20%. And so a strategy that we've been helping people out with, and I'll use an extreme example of a family where they had all this credit card debt, and we said, what if we trade that and pay it off with a home equity line of credit? And so instead of paying 22% interest rate, month over month, you pay the HELOC interest rate, which is like 8%, 9%, 10%. That switch in the interest rate that they're paying saves them $3,000 a month. They're able to quit a second job that they were working because they had this crippling debt. So if you have any questions, if there's anything me and my dad can do to help you out, and don't hesitate to reach out. I think on this email there's a link to schedule a call with me and my dad. We'd be happy to talk. Start your HomeQuest.